Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Shaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayet. Nashra Prayeshva Padreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8. We read verse 36, so we're on 37 now. 1:8:37. Apyadyanastvang svakrutehita prabho jahasasi svitsuhrudo nujivana. Yeshang nachanyad bhavatav padam bujad parayanang rajasu yojitang hasam. Transition and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us? So, little flashback to context is useful here, and this picture might be actually really nice too. Krishna is leaving. He's leaving for Dvarka, and as he's leaving, these prayers are being spoken to him. Right here, you can see she's coming up to him, and she's offering him prayers while he's on the chariot, about to leave. So now she's saying, are you leaving us today, though we're completely dependent on your mercy? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Pandavas are most fortunate because, with all good luck, they were entirely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on Him. The material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything. But the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt of becoming independent of the laws of nature. Beginning from Ravana, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planets of heaven, down to the present age, they are trying to overcome the laws of nature. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power. But the highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor, but at the same time depend completely on the Lord. The Pandavas were the ideal executors of this standard of civilization. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the goodwill of Lord Sri Krishna, but they were not idle parasites of the Lord. They were all highly qualified, both by personal character and by physical activities. Still, they always looked for the mercy of the Lord because they knew that every living being is dependent by constitutional position. The perfection of life is, therefore, to become dependent on the will of the Lord, instead of becoming falsely independent in the material world. Those who try to become falsely independent of the Lord are called anatta, or without any guardian. Whereas those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called sanata, or those having someone to protect them. Therefore, we must try to be sanata, so that we can always be protected from the unfavorable condition of material existence. By the deluding power of the external material nature, we forget that the material condition of life is the most undesirable perplexity. The Bhagavad Gita therefore directs us 7:19 that after many, many births, one fortunate person becomes aware of the fact that Vasudeva is all in all, and that the best way of leading one's life is to surrender unto him completely. That is the sign of a Mahatma. All the members of the Pandava family were Mahatmas in household life. Maharaj Yudhishthira was the head of these Mahatmas, and Queen Kunti Devi was the mother. The lessons of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavad Purana, that's the Srimad Bhagavatam, are therefore inevitably connected with the history of the Pandava Mahatmas. For them, separation from the Lord was just like the separation of a fish from water. Srimati Kunti Devi therefore felt such separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole prayer of the queen is to try to persuade the Lord to stay with them. After the battle of Kurukshetra, although the inimical kings were killed, their sons and grandsons were still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who are put into the condition of enmity, but all of us are always in such a condition. And the best way of living is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord, and thereby overcome all difficulties of material existence. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Om Jnana-timirantasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachanane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatire Shatanane Vanchakalpatarupyascha Kripasantupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanepyo Vaishnavepyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande Haribol. O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us? Very, very deep purport, I felt. Prabhupada is really speaking to the condition of the living entity in such a poignant way. The majority of the purport deals with psychology, material psychology and spiritual psychology, and he starts by saying something incredible. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune, right? And this kind of like spells out the whole situation. To be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost misfortune. It's also inevitable, completely. Like everyone is always dependent on other people because we exist in relationship. I mean, everything in the universe exists in relationship, even just material things. Like you can't have an electron without a neutron. You can't have the sun, the planets without each other. The day and night are following one another. Female, male, old, young. There's always relationships, right? And so in the material world, to be dependent on someone else is unfortunate because then you're not in control, right? And then you can be exploited. You could lose. And so it's not that it's random that we're here. Everybody who's here in the material world, short of those who are descending for just strictly for service to the Lord, are here because they want to be independent. So they get to play at that. And in the material world, we try to be independent, right? We try to actually control and enjoy and come to a position where we're not dependent on anybody else. And the fundamental reason for that is because we wanted to. And while we're here, there's a way in which the nature of the world kind of offers some evidence for trying to do that. Oh yeah, I should totally try to be independent because then I'll be able to avoid that situation, avoid this situation. Look at that person over there. If only they were independent like me, then they wouldn't have problems, right? There is a way in which, the material world apparently is incentivizing us to try to play out our own God project. And yet, the material world consistently, with a 100% success rate, crushes the attempt to do so. Crushes it to smithereens. Every single attempt to be independent of Krishna has failed. And that's the nature of the world. And so it can be quite frustrating. And that's kind of part of the point. For those who insist on persisting with their egoistic desire to, there's no Krishna, there's no source, it's just I can actually exist on my own in defiance of basic material logic. I can't even live a few seconds without the oxygen provided for me. Those who insist on that kind of endeavor will be disabused of the notion and unceremoniously dumped back into the position of being dependent. And so that's contrasted with the reality, the internal reality of devotees. Devotees embrace their dependence, not on material nature. They see material nature as an extension, as what she is, an extension of Krishna. that they see I'm dependent on Krishna. While I'm here in this world, I'm dependent on different circumstances, materially. At least my body and mind are dependent on things materially here, at the whims of the servant of Krishna. And if I'm in spiritual consciousness, I'm dependent on his will because I'm trying to serve him. He'll guide me. And if I'm in the spiritual world, I'm dependent on him there too. And they're training themselves for that. They're training themselves for sweet surrender, right? There's a way in which this idea of surrender is like a four-letter word. It's very scary because it's synonymous with being dependent on the will of another. That's what it seems like in material consciousness. People hear surrender to God, surrender to Krishna. Bhakti yoga means surrender, the art of surrender. I mean, even like the word Islam is, I believe, my understanding is it's Arabic for submission, And people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't play that card. I'm not going to submit to anybody. Like, that's terrifying. And yet, that's the beauty of Bhakti yoga, is that the kind of independence that we're seeking is actually it's a nightmare. It just creates problems for us. It directly contradicts what truly makes us happy. And so Bhakti yoga is a process of trying out, testing out, running the experiment, dipping our toe in, and then maybe like a little more regulated way kind of practicing, and then training, and then yearning for pure dependence on Krishna, only on Krishna, on no one else, on nothing else. But the dependence, when it's directed completely at the independent center, that becomes complete freedom, right? And we see that this drive is there. This drive is there, even in the materially conditioned souls, to find the perfect center and to bow their head and surrender there. Everyone is trying for that. Proof? Everyone is looking for a transcendent experience. Movies, I want to have a big screen, I want to have surround sound, I want to dive into the director's vision. I want to forget all this other stuff and just dive in and surrender to that. Oh, the NFL playoffs. I want to go and surrender myself. We can all just chant defense or whatever, right? We want to transcend. We want to transcend. I want to trust that my political party, that my ideologies are protecting me. I want to give my autonomy away and trust that I'm being protected. I want to embrace my lover and give myself to them completely and be overwhelmed by them. We want to surrender. We want to surrender. We want to be swept away. And every attempt to do that with a center that is not the fully powerful, independent source will always be a failure. Failure means that it cannot fully satisfy. Doesn't mean we don't try to do it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. Like, there's a way in which we have to, fulfill our material things, but it's never going to satisfy the heart completely, right? And yet the yearning is there, right? As the song says, constant craving has always been. There's this constant craving for complete surrender. And so Prabhupada is very clearly delineating for us how that works, why we have that desire, and where it must go, where it must be reposed. So he does so by logic, and he does so by example. Personal example. He's citing the example of the Pandavas, right? First, he gives the example of Ravana, who was a first-class demon. Ravana was the sworn enemy of Lord Ramachandra, and he kidnapped Sita, thinking, "Oh, she's so beautiful, she should be mine." This is very symptomatic of the disease of material consciousness. Like, you see something attractive, some function of material nature, you see, because material nature is very beautiful. It has to be. Krishna is all attractive. Sometimes you think like, oh, it's a problem that the world is full of beauty. It's so distracting. Oh, women or money they're not the problem. The problem is that you've not oriented yourself properly to Krishna being the all attractive. Ravana saw Sita Devi, the embodiment of Krishna's Shakti, and how beautiful she must be, we can only imagine. She's an expansion of Srimati Radharani. And he doesn't think, wow, maybe she can bless me to be a devotee. Maybe she can bless me to come closer to Rama. No, he thinks, oh yeah, that's made for me. That's made for me. And that's the consciousness of the materialist. And Ravana just ramps it up to like an 11 out of 10. So it's insane when you look at it. But really, it's insane on any small degree. The idea, like the way that Prabhupada points out, every pauper is proud of their penny. The way we fight, the way we quibble, the way we think we can actually own something, someone's beauty, some intelligence, some money, some fame, all these shaktis, these energies of the Lord, that they're coming and going. And we think on some level, oh yeah, I can grab that with both hands and make it mine. It's such a childish and unfortunate point of view, doomed to failure. So that's Ravana. Contrast that with the Pandavas. The Pandavas are actually incredibly qualified persons. This is important to understand because, and Prabhupada, he actually makes this point quite clear. Sometimes in thinking about like dependence and like dependence on God, there's this idea that dependence on God looks like just like, how did Prabhupada put it? I want to quote him here. He says something really beautiful. Yeah, but they were not parasites, idle parasites of the Lord. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the goodwill of Lord Sri Krishna, but they were not idle parasites of the Lord. They're not sitting there inactive. The opposite of the active search for independence in the world is not inactivity because we're just like lazy. Oh, Krishna will take care of it. That dependence on the Lord is there, but they were fully qualified in all respects. So that's relevant, for example, because when we hear Bhagavad Gita and we're like, oh, Arjuna, he's having a breakdown on the battlefield, we might think like, oh, bro, you should have like lifted more weights and practiced your archery better, and then you would have more confidence in yourself, and you could like just actually do this battle thing. No, no. Arjuna was the most qualified warrior on the battlefield out of everybody there. He was the single most powerful, trained, skilled, blessed, well-equipped warrior. You'll not meet a man more manly than that man. There is no manliness that's going to solve his problems. There's no intelligence that's going to solve his problems. He was brilliant. The Pandavas, brilliant, brilliant people, all of them. Very, very well raised, incredible lineage, wealthy, beautiful, strong. That's not enough. But what does it mean is that they used all of the gifts, whatever the gifts they had, they used it in Krishna's service. They did not use it. They didn't pretend they didn't have it. They weren't falsely humble, like, oh no, I can't. It's not possible for me to fight. I'm very weak. Oh, I'm too foolish. I can't do this. It's like they knew if Krishna gives me power, I can do anything he wants me to do. But it's not my power. It's Krishna's. And we see that later in the first canto. I'll give you a little sneak preview. Arjuna, after Krishna leaves the planet, he loses his ability to be powerful. To perform his Kshatriya Dharma. He loses his ability. And he's shocked by it, and appalled, and horrified. And he's also feeling the tragedy of Krishna's leaving, which Kunti Devi is also trying to forestall because he's everything for them. And then he remembered the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. The same way we need to remember the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, that when you're in the middle of this difficult situation that you can't solve, just remember that Krishna is in charge, give yourself to that, and receive whatever you need from him. And Arjuna remembered, like, oh yeah, okay, this power has been withdrawn by the will of the Lord. It's not that I'm a failure. This is what Krishna must want. I must surrender to his will, and whatever he wants, I'll ask for it, and maybe he'll manifest more clarity for me, what he wants from me right now in this situation. It's not to fight a war. This isn't Kurukshetra anymore, but I'm still his devotee. And this is where satisfaction and peace is, because you can be his devotee when times are good, and you can be his devotee when times are tough. And Kali Yuga will give you plenty of opportunities to practice that. Plenty of opportunities. So in describing the Pandavas, we're hearing like a little summary. We've heard a summary of some of the stuff they went through, how difficult it was for them, how targeted they were, how unfair, how maligned they were, unfair the circumstances, and that's for our benefit. They didn't need to go through that for themselves. They didn't need to get purified by that. Their surrender was pure and complete. They didn't need to do that for themselves. They did it for us. Because we need to hear about what it's like for someone to go through hell and still be like, no, I choose Krishna. I'm never going to stop. And how satisfying that is. Because we're all going to have our own little mini hellish experiences, and our many heavenly experiences too. We have to stay steady in that as well. And the hellish thing is like, Prabhupada points out the contrasting psychologies of materialists and devotees. Materialists, something bad happens, something averse, like that's like they don't like that, and they think Prabhupada says, they think, how can there be a God? How can someone as wonderful as me suffer? Therefore, there's no God. And when a devotee goes through it, they think this is Krishna's mercy, one way or another. I may not understand it, but I trust it's coming from Him. Maybe it's to purify me. Maybe it's to refine my purpose. Maybe it's as an example for the people around me. Maybe it's just, what the world has to go through right now, and I'm along for the ride. And it's to deepen my fixity of purpose that I'll keep chanting. I'll keep sharing bhakti. I'll keep remembering my identity. Whatever the purpose is, it has to do with Krishna. And if something good happens, the materialist thinks, God, who needs God? Look how great I have it. Full bank, full wallet, full stomach, full bank account. I'm great. And the devotee thinks, wow, thanks, Krishna. You're so kind that things are very comfortable right now. And who knows if they'll stay that way. But anyway, this is coming from you. Thank you very much. So this is all training. It's a training ground. And so this increasing experience of practicing being dependent on Krishna is something that Prabhupada is beautifully describing in the purport. And it's really the life of a devotee, practicing being dependent on Krishna. Because actually we already are. And Krishna's so kind, He doesn't just plunge us into that, usually. It'll be a bit much, So we're training. We're training for it. And sometimes the training gets a little more intense. Sometimes you have to accelerate your surrender, where it's like, oh wow, I just had a stroke and half my body won't work. It's like, oh okay, like I really, now it's like accelerated learning. Or I just lost all my money. Or my reputation has been ruined. Or I'm living in a situation where my own physical safety is now in question, right? And that's another opportunity it's just accelerated dependence. So before things get very intense, the devotees, the wise devotees, just practice deliberately every day. And so there's this expression, to die before you die. And devotees are doing this. They're practicing dying before dying. That means they're not waiting to have something forcibly taken away from them before they start to surrender it, right? There's a joke. Two men, friends, are walking down the street. They turn and go into a dark alley to take a shortcut. A guy jumps out of the shadows with a knife, and he says, that's it, give me all your money or you're going to die. I'm going to kill you. And so the one guy gives all his money. The other guy says, just 1 second. You'll have everything I have. Just give me 1 second. Turns to his friend and says, Joe, I just want to give you that $50 I owe you. And he gives it now, right? And it's like, it's going to get taken from you anyway. Practice giving it away. That wasn't Prabhupada, actually. The one that Prabhupada said was, there was this rascal person. I think his name in the story was Gopal Ban. And he was such a rascal. Everyone would criticize him. You never give anything to the Lord. You never surrender anything. You never make any sacrifice. But he was such a miser, right? It's all for me. And so one day, I think like he was carrying some grain or something, and the wind came and blew it all away. And as the wind is blowing it away, he said, I offer that! Because it's not his anymore, right? Don't be like that guy, and don't wait for it to get ripped out of your hands, pulled away by the wind, and you see in real time, I got like a millisecond to make my peace with the fact that this has never been mine and is never going to be mine. Don't do that, because it's harder. It's harder. Die before you die. Practice letting go, because it was never yours in the first place, right? The body, your gifts, your position in the material world, your reputation, fame, strength, it was never yours. I mean, heck, growing old will teach you a lot of those things, but if you really embrace the lesson, instead of fighting against it, taking your Viagra pills and like setting yourself up for another rebirth because you're just dead set on enjoying material nature, just practice. Practice letting go. Use whatever you got in Krishna's service. When it starts to get taken away, let it go gracefully and keep using whatever you have in Krishna's service, because you can always serve Krishna. You can serve Krishna without the ability to speak. You can just serve him in your mind. That never stops, and that's a beautiful realization we can have by practicing letting go. So we talked about how to be dependent on others' mercy in the material world. In material consciousness is the highest sign of misfortune. How everyone's trying to fight against that. How the whole world is running on the attempt to try to be independent, but that's actually a source of distress. And we talked about the Pandavas and how they used what they had very actively. They weren't idle parasites. They weren't sitting around waiting for Krishna to do everything, but they were using what they had in Krishna's service. And that sweet surrender was very much exemplified by them, and that's something we can try to undertake ourselves by dying before we die and giving away before it's taken away from you. Like if you give away your money before you die, you actually know where it's going. Ever think about that? Otherwise, you got to trust that someone's going to execute your will properly. And if you don't have a will, guess who gets it? The government. Like use what you got. Give away all your assets, your strength, your words, your money. Use what you have in Krishna's service while you have the ability to give it. Because if you don't give it, it'll just get taken anyway. So it's never yours. So you may as well, while you have some asset, while you have a voice, use it for Krishna. While you have the ability to walk for Krishna. While you have money, spend it for Krishna. While you have intelligence, apply it for Krishna's service. And then you're not an idle parasite. You're not just sitting around waiting for Krishna to do everything. And you're also not trying to use your energy for your own God project. And this now will align with Prabhupada's statement of the highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. Act as if it all depends on you, and in your heart, depend as if it all align yourself as if it all depends on Krishna. Hare Krishna. Om Tat Sat. So now we'll take any comments, questions, reflections. Anything you heard that stood out on this verse 1:837. Another gem from Kunti Devi.
There were a few things that I kind of noted.
I think I pressed mute on my computer. 1 second, so I can hear you. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
There was a couple things that I noted. This one we hear often, and it just bears repeating like every day, several times a day. The highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. I know that's how the purport started, and I just had to write that down. A couple things that you said that I wrote down that just kind of hit me is the material world is always tempting us to conduct our own God project, and it will always take it away every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. He never stops trying to catch the Roadrunner. He's failed every time. To his embarrassment, to great injury. He loses everything, including his dignity. But every time he's like, here I am, Wile E. Coyote, super genius. I'm gonna use my Acme rocket or whatever. It's like that's actually our whole thing. We're trying to capture what can never be captured. You're trying to catch up to material nature. She's so much bigger than us. It's not even funny. Actually, it is. It's really funny. And we're failing and falling on our butts like Wile E. Coyote. And it's just that's her job. For as long as we try to do that, and when we stop doing that and try to actually just apply ourselves in service, her service to Krishna changes to us. She's no longer there to torment us, because that tormenting is actually like, please learn. You're here to surrender. Once we start to apply that, she's not the harsh taskmistress anymore. She's not vicious. There may be suffering still, but it's mitigated. There's a lot more descending mercy and grace and softness. She shows a much kinder feature. That same feminine aspect. She's not like the harsh nanny now. Now she's like very, very loving and gently guiding us to develop our bhakti, nourishing us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for class. Thank you for this whole morning
Cool.
sangha. What struck me was how much until I started to try to surrender, how much I wanted to have everybody bend to my will
Mm,
without being conscious of it. I wanted everything to go my way. I wanted to really to be the higher power to everybody else, and to, and in doing so, I was always filled with fear and doubt, anxiety, because I was like, what direction do I take? Um, there's a saying that in one of the other programs I'm in, it's like, I may not be much, but it's all I ever think about. and and so constantly being the one that wants to be the center of the universe, and then you can have this idea that, or I've had this idea, well, if I had existed then, if I had been on that chariot, yeah, sure, I would be devoted, right? But the idea that, and you expressed it so well when Arjuna realized, when Krishna left and his powers were gone, what do I have here? And I have his name. I have the ability to chant Krishna's name and have his mercy through the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and to be able to, surrender to a place which would allow me to, be free from fear and anxiety and judgment, and not be consumed by, this is good, this is bad, that I can see everything on sort of an equal level, and try to live my life doing service in a way that Krishna is calling to me to do. So to move away from it, and it's easier because I'm getting older. My career was taken away from me, right?
mm,
And I'm like, okay, and I'm like, I'm happy about that because that gives me more time to come to classes to learn more. But when you're in the middle of it, it is difficult.
yeah.
When you're raising a child and you have to be the higher power initially to that child, how do you steer that into trying to represent Krishna in the best possible way as the higher power to a child, right? And be moving, a child from your hand into Krishna's hand, you know, in that journey. So it's a very interesting journey. It's a wonderful purport. I could see myself begging Krishna to stay, and just saying, just give me one more minute, please. But I have that one more minute because I always have the ability to dive deeper into my appreciation of Krishna and Radha with the chanting of the mantra and with association and by studying. So thank you so much.
Thank you for that comment. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, another thing about the difference between spiritual consciousness and material consciousness is that material separation is actually just, it sucks. It's terrible. And there's no redemption for it. But there's no such thing as spiritual separation in the sense that we think of it, because how can we be separated from our eternal center? It's like if you actually choose to be aligned with that center, you never leave. The geographical proximity doesn't really matter. In fact, the separation that's incoming, they are going to experience some separation, just increases the intensity of the relationship. The intimacy becomes more. They become closer to each other because of that external separation. Um, so we should never feel sorry for her. I mean, it's like with the gopis in Vrindavan. It's on one level, um, the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes it as like drinking poison, but also simultaneously having a pot of immortal nectar poured on your head. It's not like a tragedy. This isn't a Shakespearean play. It's actually the highest bliss. Yeah, and I really like what you said about remembering that we have Krishna's names. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a. I think this is like always something I want to hear in a class. That's something I need to hear pretty much always. Okay, I need to chant, and I have the ability to chant. I shouldn't take it for granted. Hence these japa affirmations books, and yeah, so we don't overlook that. Shakti.
Um, this was such a perfect verse for me today. Um, I I started surrendering yesterday, and sat with the deities and cried and talked to Krishna and Radha and asked them for strength to be there for the family, my friends, family, to I didn't ask. It was it's not it was an odd moment where I knew one day this would happen, and I never thought, what would I say, right? Like, bring her back, and I know Krishna's mercy. I don't know his mercy, but I know he's so merciful. And I also know when things happen, there's a rhyme and reason for what happens. And so I just asked for like this safe passage, which, you know, the more I'm finding, I did, like yesterday, I chanted extra rounds. So to be, it's the first time I ever really did that, to just get closer to Krishna. And the more I surrender, the I don't want to say I'm at peace, but I'm in a place where I don't feel like I'm gonna like fall on the floor, and like I'm gonna mourn, but I just keep chanting. Like I already said to myself, I'm gonna chant the whole ride, the whole car ride, and I know that that will help me, like, be in a place, because I'm reaching out to Krishna, and every time I reach out to him, he's always there. He's never not there. And so knowing that, I feel some kind of a, if I reach out, then he will hold me. And
Yeah.
does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making
Yeah,
sense.
it does, and it's different than like I was contrasting what you're saying about like you know feeling the presence of Krishna with the materialistic desire to understand why, and like and like totally get it. And I was thinking of a verse, and I looked it up because it's in the next chapter. Bhishma Dev, another incredible devotee, incredible devotee. I mean, you could talk about Bhishma Dev for hours. He's like the grandfather powerhouse of the whole family. He's leaving his body. He's offering these great prayers, and he says in 1:9:16, "O King," to Yudhishthir. This is right after the Battle of Kurukshetra, when Yudhishthir was feeling grief at how many people had died to put him on the throne. He said, "O King, no one can know the plan of the Lord Shri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered." And so it's just a reminder that like he tells us what we need to know, and there's so much that may not be clear to us. But the devotee, as Bhishma Dev understands, the devotee understands, yeah, but he's in charge. And they reach out for that loving connection. And that's what we need. We don't necessarily need to know everything. We may think we do, but we do need to feel that connection with Krishna. We do need that relationship. And from that, things like knowledge, they flow. But that's secondary. The primary is the relationship. Thank you. Yeah. Any other reflections? Anything you heard that stood out? Leanne, would you like to share one? Then we'll have a clean sweep. That's okay. All right. Well, I'm going to be going to, Krishna willing, to India next week. And so what we're going to do is we discussed this, we're going to have the morning program continue. And so we'll have the same link, and you all can go and like somebody can lead the kirtan. You can figure out amongst yourselves. You could, somebody can lead the kirtan, somebody can lead the Nrsimha prayers as you like. I think Tanya has a copy of the job affirmations too, which is great. And what I'm going to do for class is I'm going to record classes, and for the next few verses. because I think we have like 3 weeks before we come back. So that's 3 classes. And what I'll do is just record them and send them, before the, like maybe the day of, or so the night before or something. And then maybe somebody can play the class on YouTube or whatever, and then you all can listen to it. And then you can discuss amongst yourselves. I maybe can start the discussion in the recording, and then you can start to kind of discuss amongst yourselves, and you'll have Sangha, and you'll hear the Bhagavatam. And that'll make me really, really happy, because that means that the morning program keeps going, and it'll be good for all of you too. And wherever I am, I'll be like Mumbai and Mayapur, I'll be in the flow of the Mahamantra and the Bhagavatam as well, Krishna willing. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Now let's offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. Jai. Manchakalpatarupyascha kripa santupyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.